it's me again. I'm Lena and I'm from the Healthcare Landscape Group. In this video, I'll be talking about my main video, which is on the topic of the healthcare map. Now, in this video, I'll be talking about three main parts. Firstly, the levels of care. Secondly, the hierarchy in healthcare. And then finally, I'll be talking about the administrator. So what does CFO, COO, CMO, CNO mean? So I'll be talking about the keywords and roles of each administrator. So let's get started on the first part. This first part are the levels of care. Now, the levels of care, there are four main levels of care: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. So quaternary care. So I'll be making a pyramid. Firstly is primary care, primary. Then we will have secondary. And as we move up the pyramid, the roles and the care will be much more advanced. So I'll be writing advanced here. Next is tertiary, and then quaternary. Okay, so what is primary care? Well, primary care is like the first point of contact. So when you first come into the hospital, that is your first point of contact. For example, general practitioners, and then the family doctors, that is the first form of care, public care. It's not very advanced as the other ones, but it's basic care, so that's primary care. The next one is secondary care. So secondary care is after the primary care. It means specialized care, so more specialized than the primary care. So for example, secondary care can include cardiologists and surgeons, so specialists in that field. So for example, if I'm specialized in a certain field, for example, I'm a specialized surgeon, then I only specialize in surgery. And if I'm a cardiologist, then I only specialize in cardiology. So that is my specialty. So the second level are specialists. Next is tertiary. Tertiary is consultative care. So consultative care or tertiary care is specialized high technical care. So for example, this will include in hospitals and complex surgery. So a little bit more complex than the secondary care. So as you move up the ladder, you will see that it is more advanced. Next, the quaternary care. So quaternary care is the most specialized of all the four levels of care, and it is the top of the pyramid. So it's the subset or a section, a additional extension of the tertiary care. So that is one more advanced, so one level above tertiary care. Well, what does this include? Well, it is an extremely specialized and experimental care. So there are a lot of technology, high advanced technology that are included in this. So highly experimental and specialized care. Those are the four levels of care. Primary care is the most basic, and as you move up the ladder, it will get more expensive and of course more complex and advanced. Moving on, the hierarchy in healthcare. Now, hierarchy, you might have heard of this word, maybe you have not heard of this word, but for example, if you are in a kingdom, medieval kingdom long ago, the hierarchy, the top of the hierarchy is the king or the queen, and the bottom is the peasants or the slaves. So that is exactly what hierarchy is, but in the hospital. The bottom are the front field workers, the providers that we see every day, like the primary care, so that is primary care. And at the top are the board of directors and executive leaders. So here, as you can see here, is on my mind map is a picture of the hierarchy in healthcare. Firstly, at the top is the board of directors. So the board of directors will include, firstly, the president, the vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer of the hospital. Next, their role down there is executive leader. So this will include the CEO, and then branching down from there are the COO, the CFO, and the COO. I'll explain what these are later. Then we have the department administrators. So the department administrators, for example, the CNO and the CMO. So CNO or the chief nursing officer is in charge of the nursing staff, while the chief medical officer or CMO is in charge of the medical staff. So those are the department administrators. Then down there are patient care managers, which will be in charge of the providers. So firstly, the board of directors or the governors. The next level is the C-suite executives. The third level is the management level, and then the fourth level or the final level is the frontline staff. So this will include nurses, physicians, technicians, therapists, and support staff. So those are the providers. I also have one more picture of this map as well. It's more like simpler. It's simpler. So this is the leadership structure in healthcare. The hospital CEO or administrator, then down there is CMO and CNO. I talked about that. Department heads, support and administrative leaders, team leads, and unit managers. So that is for that part. For more specific details, well, administrative or executive can include board of directors, COO, CEO, CNO, CMO, CFO, and CCO. So administrative and executive. Next is the clinical hierarchy. So the clinical hierarchy will include, firstly, at the top of the pyramid is the attending physician or the specialist. So at the top of the pyramid is the attending physician or the specialist. Next is the fellow, the resident, the intern, and then finally the medical student. Now firstly, what is the attending physician or the specialist? Well, this is the senior doctor with the final responsibility of care. So they oversee all the operations of the fellow, the resident, intern, and the medical student. As for the fellow, the fellow is a physician, a specialized physician. So that is a physician that is specialized, not as specialized as the attending physician or specialist. Next is the resident. So after you go out of graduated medical school, you have like a few years of residency, and that is when you are a resident. You could be a junior or a senior, so a qualified doctor in training for a specialty. You are still getting paid, but you are under supervision of a fellow. Next is the intern. So the intern is down below the resident. So the intern is basically just like a resident, but a first year resident. So that is the intern. Finally, the medical student. They haven't graduated school yet. They're still in training and supervised by residents or attending, so attending physicians. Next, the nursing hierarchy. It is the same as the clinical hierarchy, but they are different in some ways. The nurse manager and director oversees the unit, then the charge nurse, which is below that, manages the shifts and coordinates daily care. The third one is the registered nurse or the RN. This is like a kind of doctor. It's not really a doctor, but has the same responsibilities of a doctor, almost like a physician. So the registered nurse is in charge of the licensed practical nurse or the nursing assistant. So licensed practical nurse could be LPN, and then we can work up to the RN. But the registered nurse provides direct patient care, works with the patient, and then the licensed practical nurse or the nursing assistant provides foundational care, so basic care. And so those are the specifics of the hierarchy in healthcare. Finally, if you are wondering what CFO, COO, and CEOs are, then I'll be telling you. So firstly, I will be reading this. So firstly, CEO. We all heard of this word, CEO. It's a very high-level position. So CEO is Chief Executive Officer, and the CEO of a hospital or a clinic oversees the overall strategy, the operations, the finances of that company or hospital. The COO or Chief Operating Officer manages the day-to-day operations. So the CEO is at the top, and then down there is the COO, CFO, and CCO. So the COO is the Chief Operating Officer. They manages the day-to-day operations of the hospital. Then the CFO is the Chief Financial Officer. Of course, they manages the financial aspects of that department. So they manages the financial department. Then the CCO is the Chief Clinical Officer. They guide the clinical staff. So they guide clinical staff and programs. So that is the Chief Clinical Officer. Now you might be wondering, what is the difference between a Chief Medical Officer and what is the difference between the Chief Clinical Officer? So those two words, they're the same, right? Well, not exactly. As you can see on here, CCO is one position above the CNO and the CMO. So CNO, or Chief Nursing Officer, is in charge of the nursing staff, and CMO with an M is the Chief Medical Officer, and they oversee the medical staff. So these two work together. The CMO and the CNO work together to ensure that the basic operations are met. And I'll be talking about in my DE2 more on the difference of the CMO and the CCO. So if you're interested, go check that out. So that is all I have to say for my main video this week. I hope that you learned something new. If you have any questions or any comments, then be sure to leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye!